Hi, and welcome to the first in what ought to be a really fun series here on UnityCookie.com, where we'll be creating an entire lunar lander game. And if that name means nothing to you, maybe, well, I'm sorry, you were born in the wrong generation and apparently didn't get to experience what was one of the greatest secret study hall time wasters your high school's internet ever offered. For you poor folks, we'll be fixing that today, right away. And for the rest of us, this should be a fun, nostalgic recreation of one of the classic games from the old web. And well, let's take a look at the gameplay of this actual game and see exactly what we'll be making. So this game, which I am sort of rebuilding and now calling Minelander, is, like I said, just sort of a recreation of Lunar Lander with a bit more added to it and looking, fancier in 3D. So let's take a quick look. Oops, there we go. So in this game, the entire idea is basically to use your little lander ship and without running out of fuel, which you see in the upper right there, land on each of the platforms, not too hard or you explode, and basically just progress from level to level. And of course they get much more complex than this, and if you happen to slam into something or run into it, kaboom, you explode. So pretty simple, just something that was lots of fun back in the day and hopefully still is, and maybe even a little more with a few fancy tweaks and visuals. So we'll see how that goes. And we'll be creating basically this game a little stripped down, the core of it, without quite all the bells and whistles and such that this one has, just so it's easy enough to do and won't take us forever. So since we'll be creating a semi-complex game, it's important to carefully plan out everything before diving in and just causing yourself all sorts of trouble, wasted time and effort, and of course lots of frustration. And I'd like to go just a bit in depth about this, so prepare yourself for a short lecture. I promise it won't be too bad, but it is important stuff, at least if, like me, you are an aspiring game designer looking forward to creating the next big game. So when creating a game, no matter how simple even, the first thing you want to do is always hammer out all the actual game concept mechanics, the flow, the UI setup, everything that's going to be part of the game. And then, and this is the surprisingly hard part, get all that down on paper in a clear, simple, but detailed game design document, or the GDD, and think of this as a manual of sorts, a manual that could tell even a complete stranger how to build your game concept from scratch all the way to finish, how to play it, and even who, how, and where to publish and marketing it. So this part probably sounds a bit tedious, maybe even unnecessary. After all, it's all nice and perfect in your head, and only you'll be making it. But wrong. I can tell you from much painful experience that if you don't get it all down on paper, at least three majorly bad things will happen. One, you'll be constantly changing and morphing the game as you make it. Two, you'll waste insane amounts of time and effort on things that will just end up getting tossed out. And three, worst of all, as a result of all of that, you will probably never ever finish it, and you'll possibly go just a little bit mad from all the frustration and pain it will cause you. Trust me, unfortunately, I know from too many times personal experience. So we want to take the game in nice, manageable chunks, and we'll start with the visual assets. And I find it really helps to create a spreadsheet with all the necessary assets and their state of completion, notes, all that stuff. It's a great way to not only keep track of what you're doing and where you are, keep focus, but also keep yourself on a nice rolling sense of accomplishment as you tick off each box and say, hey, I'm done with this, done with this, done with this, and you can see exactly what's left to continue doing. That way you never feel bogged down in the game dev process as it moves on. And again, trust me from experience, that happens too. So let's take a look at a quick spreadsheet here. So we know we need to create, in this case, and I'll outline it here real quick, we have, or at least visually, some 3D assets. We have 2D assets, so textures and such. And we have some visual effects, things like particles and explosions, that sort of fun stuff. And for the 3D, we'll have a pretty basic list here, just asteroid chunks, Need 5 of those at least. We'll need a player ship, and we'll need a landing pad. And the 2D assets column will need the asteroid textures. Again, at least 5 of those. We'll need, let's see, really just some space backgrounds is all else for 2D. And we'll say 5 of those as well. Oops, I should say visual effects here. And for visual effects, I guess we'll need the main thruster, that orangish red one that goes on the bottom, or I guess whatever color you might end up making it. We'll need the side thrusters, and of course the explosions. We'll need 3 different of those ones, just so we can sort of randomize and make it not look exactly the same every time you go kaboom. So we've got all that set up. We can make this look a little prettier maybe. That probably works, and we'll call this visual assets. There we go. Okay, so we know what we need to create, and it's easy enough to then just start knocking them out one by one, and this way you'll never get sidetracked, forget parts, anything like that, or at least less often. So with this tutorial, all the assets for it are actually already available for you to download and just use, of course. But if you want to be really cool, you can just go ahead and use mine only as templates, and then create your own, certainly much more awesome assets. Either way, the tutorial is about Unity, not the asset creation, so we won't be going too in-depth into the creation of these assets. However, I did want to just point out a few important things that will be handy for any game items that you might be making yourself. So we'll open just a 3ds Max I happen to use for creating all the game assets. You might be using Blender or anything else, it doesn't matter. The tips and points here will all be basically the same anyway. So the first thing to remember is scale is important, especially in a game like this where we will be using physics, realistic physics especially. So you want to make sure that the scale is correct. Obviously if you have a 100-meter tall ship by accident, it's not going to react the same as a 5-meter tall ship, and you're going to have a really slow, sluggish, funny looking game, or it could be the opposite. So we want to make sure we get all these things working correct. Also, of course, maybe you'll just create only a ship and use the asteroids I've already provided, and they just won't match. So we want to make sure that all fits together. So with your ship, we want to make it, in this case, right about 3 meters tall by 2 meters wide. So when you're building it, just I find it's best to make some sort of like a sizer box, something that you can just sort of look at and make sure you're keeping about the right dimensions, and then set it to what did I say, 2 meters by well, I'll go say 2 meters by 2 meters by 3 meters tall. So you create something like that, and then as you see there, I'd already started in a pretty far off scale. So just this way you can make sure when you're building up that ship, you're putting it all into the right size. And with this, it's going to be a fairly simple lander, or at least mine is. It's basically just you need a cockpit, legs, and maybe a thruster on the bottom. Nothing too complex. Got to remember, we won't be seeing it very close up, so there's no need to go crazy with the detail. If we look at the one that I have here, let's see. You can see that it is really pretty simple. Just this little guy here kind of looks maybe more like some sort of a space virus or something, but nothing too complex. Legs, a spot where the thruster will come out in some sort of cockpit-looking piece. But if you have another plan for it, some other visual design in your head, go for that as well. Just again, try to keep it to right about 2 meters by 2 meters by 3 meters tall. And then once you have your ship finished, we will also have to create, or if you're making your own, that is, create a collision mesh for it. So again, if we look in here, I have this mesh that I've created that basically just encompasses the ship all around without getting too complex on geometry. The simpler it is, the better. It'll make your game perform a lot more smoothly and not have any errors or hiccups going on. So something pretty simple like that just goes around it. And again, sorry we can't really get into the building and texturing and such in this tutorial. But don't forget there's always all the great Blender and 3D Max and other tutorials right here on CG Cookie. So check those out if you're in need of any kind of help on that. Otherwise, of course, you can just use the tutorial files that are included with this. Okay, so next up would be the asteroids. Not much different here. Just as you build these, keep in mind that they'll be seen actually only from one side. So there's no reason to get too fancy with them, or waste polys on the opposite side. I have in mind just because I think I might use them maybe later in something else, and you could too. But it's perfectly fine just to build a one-sided asteroid if you'd like. Makes things a little simpler, and of course less polys equals easier on the engine. So simple asteroids. One thing that you'll come up to with the asteroids is that we need, again, collision meshes for these, and it gets a little bit complex with that because we cannot have any concave parts when we're building these collision meshes. So as you can kind of see here amidst all these crazy icons going on, the asteroid itself is the visible here with the craters and such, and then I have all these green lines around it, which if you've been watching the other Unity Cookie tutorials, excuse me, they have, we've sort of gone over how those are actually the collision models themselves, and that's basically just what the player is going to hit or land on or whatnot. So we want to make sure that it's fairly close to the actual model. As you can see here, I'm getting pretty close, but it's not always exact. Just enough to make it work well, and again, not be convex. So that means like an area like this here, where it would have to go in and then back out, you can't have. It has to be that you can draw one line to each next point without ever going inward. So try and keep that in mind when you're making them. And to make these, it's basically just as simple as build your mesh first, of course, and then around it, or even use the mesh you already built and just sort of cut it into these sections, like these green lines I have here. And then you can use those, save them all out as your collision mesh. So let me show you that real quick. So you see here I actually have each of these, each of these separate parts. Let me close this. And these are each just individual meshes, and don't worry about setting this all up yet. It might look a little complicated, but we'll be taking care of all that actually in the next tutorial. In this case, we're just worry about building them, setting them up. So build the actual mesh for your asteroid, and then just these separate convex pieces that will make up its collision. Pretty simple as that. You can see if I turn on the mesh renderer there, it's just basically just a box. Many of them put together. So again, can't get too much into detail on that. If you have any questions, make sure you ask them, and for sure check out all the other CG Cookie tutorials on here. Okay, so we've got our asteroid building there. And let's see, next I guess we'll need to create the actual landing pad. So with this, as always, just make sure we keep it pretty simple. We won't be seeing it too up close. Let's go to this one right here. In my case, I just made sort of a funky little maybe landing pad looking part with some tubes going off it that I knew I could sort of just stick into the geometry here. It might look like it was actually part of it. Go ahead and create whatever works for you, or again, just use the one that I've provided with this, which is this exact same one here. If you do, again, just make sure it's pretty simple, and remember to create that collision geometry only for this piece is all you really need. Under here I actually am just using, and I'll show you how to use simple boxes in Unity to complete it. So we only need to make a collision mesh, again, for just this piece if you create your own mesh. Alright, so once we have the landing pad, we can check where we are with these. So we have asteroid chunks, 5 of them, the player ship, and the landing pad. So we can check those off, fill them in with green or something so you know that you're done. And we'll want to move on to the asteroid textures and the space backgrounds. And for this, I find the best way to find simple textures, especially ones that you want to just sort of tile over a surface like this, is if you go to filterforge.com. So FilterForge is a great option, resource for seamless, tileable, editable textures if you intend to buy a FilterForge license. Unfortunately, there's a bit of an if there. It's not extremely expensive, but it is amazingly helpful for 3D texturing. I'll go over some free options in a moment, but I just want to take a quick look at the FilterForge here first, just in case some people might be interested. So if you click on the Filters tab up top on the home page, and then just search for whatever you might need, maybe rock in this case. There we go, and you'll almost always get a nice long list of really nice textures, and you can just click on the link to see any details or variations of it. You'll also, with this, besides just this really nice detailed texture you can get out of it, which of course tiles perfectly seamlessly, you also get a normal map, which is great, bump maps, sometimes specs, or AO, or even displacement maps. So it's a really great resource if you need some really high detail, good textures for anything 3D. Unfortunately, of course, you can only use these after purchasing a license, and since most people probably aren't planning to do that in this tutorial, it's worth taking a look to know it's available, but we'll look at some nice free resources as well. So most of all, cgtextures.com, if you take a look at that. This is a website that is just full of great textures, as the name implies. It's easy to search, and best of all, it doesn't require your money, obviously. So you can register for free. Members here, just go to membership and log in. I think there's maybe a 10 megabyte at most, or at least limit on you per day, so not a big deal at all there. And you can search in here either by category or simply by typing in your search here. In this case, maybe we want some rock textures, something like this here. And you'll see a lot of times these also are a nice tiled set for you. Some you want to be careful if they don't say tiled. Actually, almost all of these are. That's awesome. CG Textures didn't used to have as many tiled textures. So, good stuff. Find one that you like. And then simply choose whatever the largest you can get that's free, which is usually just the small, but that's more than enough for our purposes here. And you just need to click on the link, like so, and you'll see you'll download, in my case, a duplicate, since I've already downloaded this once, I guess. And go ahead and do that. Just find, say, 5 textures that you want for your asteroids. Maybe this is another good one. Go ahead and download that. And just get about 5 of those that you think will work well for the asteroids in your game. Okay, and then once we have those, we'll need 5 space images, also for the background, of course. And for this, naturally, one might be tempted just to do a quick Google search for Spacescape, go to Images, and download anything you find. But you'll find sooner or later you'll run into issues of copyrights and nasty legal use problems and such. So best not to do this, actually. And unfortunately, I've found it's very hard to find good non-copyrighted space images for whatever reason. So I've actually turned to making them all custom. And this is a bit tricky, so you're probably best off just using the images provided with the project. But if you feel especially daring, you can actually just generate your own exactly like I do, using the awesome Spacescape program by Alex Peterson. And you can find that just at alexcpeterson.com/spacescape. And this guy has this very nice procedural Spacescape generator. and you can use it simply to generate static images, or even use it to its full potential and make full 3D skyboxes, which Unity can use. Really great resource for that. He has tutorial videos here, as well as a nice manual for it, and you can download it from the link. Unfortunately, we won't really be able to get into how to use it in this video, but if you feel like getting your own space scenes, this is definitely the best method to do it. Really, especially if you do intend to use the skyboxes later on, the full 3D skyboxes in Unity. Alright, so we'll go back to our sheet, and now we can turn off these two as soon as you've found the asteroid textures and the space backgrounds. And the last bit we have, we'll finally get into some work in Unity here. We're going to make our work on the main thruster, the side thrusters, and the explosions. So let's put aside this and these and go back or over to our simple test scene here. So this is the scene that will come with the tutorial, and it'll have all the files in it. For now, all we have are the file for the asteroids, the explosions, and the test scene itself, and of course the thrusters. So I've created two pretty simple ones for everyone to try out. We have the side thrusters here, which we used for the maneuvering jets, basically. So when you move left to right or down, these will just sort of shoot up the sides just to move it around, to sort of maneuver. And then the main large thruster on the bottom to power yourself through the levels. So like I said, these are included with the tutorial package, and we won't really be getting into again building entirely custom particles in this tutorial, but we definitely will have a particle tutorial for you. So go ahead and check the link in the description, and if you really want to, get down and dirty with particles and work on creating your own entirely from scratch. Otherwise, just go ahead and open up these in Unity, and like I did here, just drag them into the view so you can play with them. Feel free to change the color if you want to make yourself a purple and green particle effect, or who knows what. Very easy to work with particles here. You have, I guess, just going over the basics, of course. The min size and max size will change the size of the particles that it puts out. So now we have very small ones up to very large ones. Oops. Just like that. The energy is how long the particle stays. So if I put this all the way up to maybe a second or so, you see that excuse me, particle stays alive basically a lot longer and can keep trailing off. There it goes. That's a pretty funky particle. The min emission and max emission are something to keep a close eye on. Don't get it too high, but it can definitely make it look better. If I make this, only 2 and 4, we have a lot less particles coming out. But of course, it's better on the performance versus, 500 and I don't want to go too high and crash the computer. We'll say 500 and 1,000. We have a lot of particles going on. It looks, a lot smoother, but we also can almost not even see that here. But it's obviously a lot harder on the engine to render that. So I'd say usually about 100 to 250 is a good number in this case. There you go. And of course we have the colors down here, which you can just change to whatever you like. And this just sets what color it starts at and then moves to. If you check the little the alpha slider on the bottom, that's the opacity of it. So it's usually nice to have it sort of ramp up in opacity. It start out very slightly off and then go down, so that way it sort of fades out real nicely towards the end, so you don't see a sudden disappearance of the particle. So go ahead and play around with that on both of these, and just until you get exactly the particles you're looking for. And then we can move on to probably the most fun bit, which will be setting up your explosions. So if you go back to the project folder and look under the detonator folder here, and then under the prefab examples, we have a whole bunch of explosion prefabs, and these are all part of the detonator pack that are available right on the right on Unity's website. It's a really great pack, put up totally for free for anyone to use. Definitely recommend using it. Lots of great stuff in it. They're fully force applying realistic. They look great, and they can even make good random sounds and such. So take a look at those. And they're all included in the tutorial packs. So just open up the prefab examples and test them out. So all you have to do is pick up one and drag it into the viewport or into the hierarchy there. Hit play and watch it go off. And you can, try out any number of them. Maybe you want this mushroom cloud one. Kaboom. Just give them all a try and see what you like. And with these, just make sure you're only, trying out the particle prefabs here, or sorry, the explosion prefabs. You really don't want to mess around with any of the other files in there, because they rely on each other and will break badly. So just worry about trying these out, seeing which one you like, and then maybe create a separate folder and call it explosions, and say if you really like this one and this one and this one, go ahead and just drag them into the explosions folder. So that way you can keep them separate for yourself, and then they should still work just fine. There it goes. That's a pretty nice one. So there we have it. All your explosions. We have the particles. We've set up in the spreadsheet, so we know we have all of these taken care of. There we go. So there we have it. The core assets of the game are ready to go. If you have any questions, again, feel free, of course, to post them right here. I'll do my best to answer them right away. And don't forget to check out all the awesome modeling and texturing tutorials here on CG Cookie, of course. If you need any help building up your own player ship or the asteroids, or just go ahead and use the ones that are created, or part of this tutorial package. No problem there. So thanks for viewing, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. So we'll be actually building the levels in Unity, and there will be a lot less talk and a lot more action, I promise. Thanks for viewing.